Hi everyone, how are you? This is Bethany Gagne, founder of Numinous, the organization that sponsors the Resident Peaceful Cities project. And this is the third video in a series that I'm doing that's really trying to help kind of almost like chunk down consciousness for people. I'm wanting people to understand that consciousness is a big word. And many people kind of just don't bother with it because it just seems too mysterious, doesn't seem very practical. It's just too vague, right? And that's because consciousness is vast. But there's one kind of common thing about anything that you do in consciousness, and that you always have this locus of awareness. You always have what I often refer to that as your wheel of power. And we take this for granted when we do a body scan, right? We take our awareness and we go through the body and we hold our awareness in a certain place and a certain place and a certain place. And each time we hold our awareness in those places in the body changes, right? Blood flow shifts, things like that. So the idea that, like, what if we don't just relegate it to a body scan? Like, how else can we use our locus of awareness to dramatically impact our lives? And I use it all the time in so many different ways. I can't think of me transitioning into a new activity where I don't have some level of awareness as far as what's going on in my body, what's going on around me. And it just becomes super practical. So that's why I started this series a couple of weeks ago with this whole idea. First, finding your locus of consciousness and where is it? And then I challenge you to hold it in your body for the following week. If you find yourself off in your mind and running and stressed, bring your awareness to your body. Then I had you anchored into the dantian, the lower belly. It's known as the seat of power in the body. It's often referred to as the seat of intention. It's also known as the primary gate for physical health. And so this idea that when we anchor into the lower body, it's our center of gravity in the body where we're poised, kind of balanced tethered to the earth, so to speak. Then when we anchor our awareness there, the quality of our thinking shifts. Okay, so we practice that. We practice holding our awareness at the dantian in the presence of our stressor, in the presence of our of anything that was plucking us. Often substance abuse or substance addictions, or any substances that you find yourself feeling powerless over. Great exercise. See, that's where consciousness becomes very practical. Right? And these people that struggle with addiction so much, they have not been trained in any of this. So you can go to some of the top addiction rehabilitation centers, right? And if they're staying really heady and they're talking all the time, and they're not moving their awareness down into the body and being in a state of being, which, by the way, in the dantian you're in theta, which is healing, then people struggle needlessly with addiction. Okay, and I disclosed earlier I came from a family high addiction, really high in my family, and so this idea of how do we hold awareness in the body in the presence of any substances that we're struggling with. All right, so now this week what we're going to do is so you're learning, you've got this locus of power, and then where do you put this locus of power? So this week we did belly last week. We're going to do the heart this week. Okay, so we're going to practice this week is to practice bringing our awareness to the heart. Now, I know we've all heard this. Maybe you've read the Heart Sutras and you've studied, you've heard of Institute of Heart Math, all of that kind of stuff. But let me just kind of give you some basics just to refresh your mind in context of what we're talking here, consciousness, right? So the heart is the biggest oscillator of the body. It puts off the biggest electromagnetic signal. In fact, you can measure your heartbeat from your toe. Or up to 6 feet around the body, right? Like that's how much of a big signal your heart is putting off all the time. So if your heart puts off what they say an incoherent signal, then the whole body is more in an incoherent state. So coherence, what does that mean? It kind of thing means like wavelengths together, right? It means things working together. So the idea is, so the understanding is that when our heartbeat, and that's just a whole thing, this is Institute of Heart Math, and I'm gonna just really make it really straightforward because I have other things to say and then get into the technical aspects of this. But this idea that when the heart rate is variable, so basically your heart you have greater heart coherence. So what does that mean? That means that you are in a different place in your nervous system. And what the Institute of Heart Math has shown is that you make better decisions and you have better clarity. Okay. You also are happier for no good reason, but that's not a heart math term because they use the most dry scientific terms ever to describe this amazing work that they do. And so I often help people kind of understand it because it can seem really boring when you look at it, but it's like really fun actually. So anyways, so what happens is basically when we move our awareness, right, that wheel of power that we've been working with, that locus of awareness, and we move it into our heart, and then we have the discipline of mind to hold it there, right? Because that's big. We'll talk lots about that. And you have the discipline of mind to hold it there. Then your heart starts to move and let it go and relax the muscles of the chest wall. Often you can bring in light. Breathing, coherent breathing is basically equal counts in and equal counts out. So that would be 4 counts breathing in, 4 counts breathing out, or 5, whatever works for you, 5 in, 5 out. And so you're just holding your awareness so that you're bringing your locus of consciousness, your locus of awareness into the heart center. Now, hopefully you're stacked correctly, right? So that you're feeling your feet underneath you, dantian, and then go to the heart, right? So now what happens is now your commerce of the world is changing, just the way it changed with the dantian, right? The same thing with the heart. So when we move into the heart and we hold it in the heart center, think of it more as the center of the chest, not like the heart to the left. But this idea that when we hold our awareness there, so a couple things, the Institute of Heart Math has done the research and has shown that when we do that, we have greater clarity. Intuition emerges, and we make better decisions, right? Now, why do we make better decisions? Because in the heart, the ego is being sublimated, right? So this idea that we are living in this culture, that we are living in our heads, and to be able to subdue the head and move into the heart, often takes years. So I often say the distance from here to here takes years, right? But it goes a lot faster when you kind of know what you're doing. So this idea that we're going to hold our awareness in our heart, and in the meditation, we'll have you maybe bring in a light, okay? And there's, oh God, what's the name of the organization? It's a whole organization that's just literally known for its incredible work on doing heart light meditations. Anyways, maybe look that up. And just to give you more information on this, because they do programs as well. But the idea that you can just anchor your awareness into your heart, and then what happens, right? Notice how your intuition increases as well, because you're no longer under the kind of control, the tyranny, I'll say the tyranny of the driven mind, right? The bullet train mind, the linear driving mind that's full of itself, right? We're going to talk a lot about not being so enamored with your thoughts, okay? Because we're not nearly as interesting as we think we are. And if you really start listening to your own thoughts, you're going to find when you get to the point where you're like bored with your own thoughts, that's good. That's like when you're ready to work. So we're going to work on subduing that chatter by moving into the heart. Now, this week, the goal is going to be also, so notice you have a difficult decision to make. Just stop, sit, anchor in the body, anchor in the heart, and just sit there and breathe for a little bit, okay? And just allow yourself to just be with what's unfolding. Trust what comes up. And the other thing, as I mentioned, is when I say you're happy for no good reason. That when we lighten the heart, I remember one time, just kind of sitting on the sofa, spontaneously breaking into some heart coherence, and then getting up to wash the dishes and, noticing how much lighter and happier I was, washing the dishes. Now, nothing changed in my life between the sofa and the dishes, except for how I had changed on the inside, right? Except for our state of being. And so what happens is you're going to find that when your heart is lighter, you will laugh easier. You'll make jokes more. It will just, that there's a quality of heart. Now, this is the thing about consciousness, is you probably could go in and out of the state all the time, but you have no idea. So you have no idea that, all of a sudden you're actually closer to the heart, you're actually laughing harder, and then the next minute you're actually kind of laughing would be very distant thought at that moment. But when you become aware of how you're sifting through states of consciousness all the time, right? And then you understand the quality of consciousness. And then when you find yourself laughing like a tend to feel like I probably laugh a little too much or a little too loud often. But when I find myself laughing a little bit too loud, I go, oh, my heart's good. Like, and so, so I just will stop and recognize that, right? And the same thing if I were to be under a stressor thing, then I actually know, as counterintuitive as it seems, that one of the best things to do when you're under stress is to somehow make yourself laugh, okay? Because that heart wisdom comes in, right? So someone sent me this beautiful quote, let me see if I can remember it, by a mathematician, and it said something like, when the heart thinks and the mind feels, that's when the river of wisdom starts, right? So we're doing a lot of when the mind feels, right? Because I'm taking your locus of awareness and you're putting it in the body and where it feels. We're going to do a ton of where the mind feels. I mean, that's what I'm always trying to get people to do, is feel their mental thoughts. But this is a week where we're going to have the heart think, right? So this idea of what is the heart wisdom? How does your quality of thinking change? Why do we make better? Institute of Heart Math says we make better decisions. Like, why do we make better decisions? Don't take my word for any of this. You start playing with it, right? And if we all start understanding that consciousness has this incredible value to the quality of our lives, it completely changes everything. So one of the biggest things that we can do, and I'm just going to simplify a little bit of the heart stuff this week, maybe yes, maybe no, but one of the things I want to stress this week is this idea of letting go of things in the heart, okay? Because we don't realize how much we're clutching at the heart when things are happening. So this idea that I'm going to have you practice taking any awareness, like we're going to hold our awareness in the heart, and then we're going to see what kind of percolates. Like maybe you'll see a scene of an old childhood memory that you hadn't really thought of in a while. Maybe you're suddenly replaying a conversation that, your body mind has put up for review, and you're sitting there and you're recognizing that maybe you're clutching, gripping, and grasping. So one thing I love to do is to just throw stuff into a divine fire, right? So we're going to spend a week. Anytime something grabs your heart and whatever, I want you to just imagine taking it and chucking it into a divine fire. All right. It feels so good. It's so fun. And I remember when we was teaching this years ago, one lady was talking about, she was at work and something happened. She's like, just threw it in the fire. She walked down the hall. Right. So it's super fun. It's very empowering. And the other thing I want you to know is also do this for positive things. Okay. Because essentially what happens is that, again, even positive emotion can be confining, constricting, and it basically reduces the flow of energy. So eventually we want to become these pure, free flow of energy throughout the body, right? That's well-being. And then when we have this free flow of energy throughout the body, then we're starting to merge with the sea of information around us. Right? And that's when the exquisite states come in and the beauty comes in. So a lot of this work is about just letting things go in the body. So let's spend a week just practicing throwing stuff in the fire, good, bad, and the ugly, and then just sit in the being and just sit in the inner freedom of being able to sit in an expanded, a spacious heart, right? So I believe that's it for this week. Listen to the meditation. Please share this. I really appreciate that people have been sharing this work. People are starting to get a little piqued going, wow, there's a whole lot more to this consciousness stuff, right? And how practical it can be. So I guess I will be doing an athlete class soon. And so just stay tuned for that. Because the athlete class is kind of when we get a group of people, you get to ask questions. We just do this really intense cleansing of the field, and we also send intentions to and from each other, and we're all trained athletes to send the intention. So you have trained people knowing how to send a clean intention towards you to help maximize your own effects, and then you become that person for other people as well. So I think that's it. I feel like there was one more thing. Can't remember. I'm sure it was good. All right. Well, thank you all. Please share. Been appreciating the comments and the interest, and people have been sharing the work. So I very much appreciate that. And I believe that's it. All right. Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.